afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Wan. I'm the director for the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission. Janelle Peterson, if you haven't met her, she's our licensing specialist, just doing an incredible job in our office. But first of all, I just want to welcome all of you to the 2024 Fly North Dakota Aviation Conference. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you have the opportunity to attend other sessions throughout the conference. We just have an incredible program throughout the week for everybody. And so again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and visit with us, learn about what's happening in North Dakota aviation, talk to other aviators, and just get to a point where all of us can continue to work together to provide excellence in aviation. And in our world, the Applicator world, we want to make sure that we have a safe environment day in and day out. And that's something incredibly important in the Aeronautics Commission as well. And so, for this event, I want to welcome you to the Aerial Applicator Safety Meeting. This is an annual meeting that we have every year. One of the requirements as part of the Aeronautics Commission for the licensing process of being an aerial applicator in our state. And so just to kind of kick things off, just a review of some of the requirements in our state. And so commercial or applicators to be a licensed aerial applicator, you need to attend one of these safety meetings, either the safety meeting or pass once every year for requirements for the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission. The Department of Agriculture, you have to attend pass once every 3 years. And so those are two separate requirements that everybody just needs to be aware of. This year, for the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission safety requirements, an applicator can receive that requirement either by attending this meeting, by attending a pass presentation, or by attending the Flying in the Wire Environment program, which is actually March 13th next week in Fargo. And so I think Brian's going to speak more about that later. But what an incredible opportunity for all the aerial applicators and the public, for that matter, to learn more about the Flying in the Wire Environment. It's an 8-hour program that's put on by a national group. Excellent programming. We're excited to have that coming to North Dakota next week. And so some other reminders. All aerial applicator aircraft in North Dakota, you have to be, the aerial applicator needs to be licensed within the state to operate. Anybody who's coming in out of state, they need to either have their own license or they need to be operating underneath the license of one of our aerial applicators. And then the aircraft itself must be listed on the license. And so those are key things. If you're adding an aircraft to your license or you're bringing something in from out of state, you need to make sure that the pilots themselves and the aircraft are listed on the license to be legally operating in the state of North Dakota. And so the key is as things change throughout your season, just make sure you're chatting with Janelle in our office. We're great to work with. We want you to be operating safely and legally within the state, so just be communicating with us as things change. As we go through the season, our office routinely receives complaints. One of the major complaints that we receive from the general public is in regards to aerial applicators that are flying over their land or flying over their houses. And so a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding or miscommunication. And so if you receive a call from us, don't panic. We're just trying to, really just determine what was going on, and we want to communicate with the public and help educate regarding the operations that are happening within our aerial applicators. And so, please work with us when complaints do arrive. But at the end of the day, anything that you can do as an aerial applicator to better communicate with the farmers in your area, and whatever you can do to avoid directly flying over houses, obviously, on certain routes. It's not new to all of you who operate. Just make sure you're doing your due diligence when you're planning to avoid people's houses where you can. Also an update on our UAS aerial applicator license. This will be the third year where individuals can receive a license for actually providing aerial application with a UAV. The maximum operating weight is 500 pounds currently. On the slide, we list some operator requirements, but you need a remote pilot license, you need any FAA exemptions that are required to perform that aerial applicator service. You need a chief pilot to meet pilot qualifications. Annual safety meetings still apply, and you also need your pesticide certification as well. And so, if anybody has any questions in regards to what's appropriate to be licensed in the state of North Dakota in the UAS world, please feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, this is the third year, and so we're learning as well, but we're excited to see more and more people utilize this technology safely within the state of North Dakota. And a separate license approval process is there. And so if you're a manned operator, again, it is a separate license, but the $200 fee is waived. You only have to pay that once. So you can be a manned operator that also has an unmanned license as well, or you can just be one or the other. And so those are two different licenses that are now provided through our office. We also want to remind you guys always that we have the Met Tower database that is on our website where pilots can go and they can receive information on where the Met Towers are throughout the state. That is a requirement of any company that is placing Met Towers to analyze the wind speeds to eventually potentially install wind towers. So something that we want to make sure that aerial applicators are aware of. We're actually working with the Department of Agriculture right now. As you see on the slide, we also have the sensitive area map that I know a lot of you look at to look at beehives and vineyards and organic crops. Eventually, we kind of want to work to create some sort of one-stop shop so that Met Towers and towers are also present for aerial applicators as well. Something we're talking about with the Department of Agriculture, so we'll see where that goes moving forward. But make sure you're utilizing the resources as able to ensure that you guys are aware of all those different areas throughout the state. Some quick updates on what's happening throughout the state of North Dakota as far as projects are concerned. On the general aviation world, we expect Lakota to have major runway rehabilitation this year. The International Peace Garden Airport in New Rockford. So those are 3 runways that we actually anticipate in the general aviation world, pending funding and successful bid prices. But those are kind of 3 that are planned this summer. Some major apron taxiway work. We're looking at Ashley, Kenmare, Grafton, Kindred, Linton, and Washburn. So just kind of be aware of those. Then we have some airfield seal coats at Mayville, St. Thomas, Drayton, Kildare, and Fort Yates. So these are all planned, again, pending appropriate bids and funding, but just kind of an awareness of where some projects are happening in the general aviation world. But as always, make sure you're checking the NOTAMs before you plan a lot of your flights. Some quick updates on some statistics. This graphic shows, going back to 1988, historical acres that have been reported to our office on an annual basis. I always like to highlight where we have been recently. So going back to 2023, you can see we're very close to about 5 million acres sprayed, which is about 1 million over the 10-year average. So very busy, more so successful spraying season for aerial applicators last year for a majority of the state. So that's great news. And we hope that 2024 is another successful season for all of you as well. This graphic we'd like to give an update on where the industry has been and where it's currently at. This is the number of licensed aerial applicators over time throughout the state. And so a common theme has been that we're seeing fewer and fewer as far as the number of licensed aerial applicators because our businesses are getting larger and our aircraft are also getting larger, but we're seeing less aircraft over time. And so, we're still seeing a kind of a downtick. At some point we expect this to level off. But right now we have 84 licensed aerial applicators utilizing 167 aircraft and 162 pilots throughout the state of North Dakota. You can see, historically, we were much higher going back in the day. But again, going back to the acreage, we're still doing average, if not historically high, number of acres being sprayed. And so the industry is getting very efficient over time as well. So it's exciting to see, but we have some industry changes that we're seeing, and I'm sure all of you see that as well as you're operating throughout the state. Some new numbers too. Like I said, we're going into the 3rd year where the UAS license is now being employed throughout the state of North Dakota. In 2023, we had 5 licensed UAS operators with about 12,000 acres being sprayed. And so again, when you think about we have 5 million acres being sprayed in total, only 12,000 of that actually comes from the UAS world. And so they're very specialized, smaller acres that mostly our manned operators wouldn't even be able to provide service to. And so, so something to keep in mind as we move forward. But we do expect to see additional UAS operators, coming into play here in North Dakota moving forward because of the opportunities that this technology does provide to our ranchers, to our farmers, things like that. And so kind of excited to see these trends as we move forward. And that's all I have at this time. Are there any questions anybody has for me before we go to the next speaker? Brian.
What do you know offhand what kind of crops UAS are spraying mostly, or is it everything?
Yes, we do have that. those statistics. I don't have them on hand, but we'd have to go back to the office.
We have to go
and
back,
find
yeah.
those. But just like when the manned operators give us their acreage reports and they actually specify the different chemicals, whether it's fertilizer, herbicide, things like that, we do have that for the UAS guys too. So if you're interested, Brian, we can get that over to you. It's
And then-
public data.
Do you know if the Department of Ag requires UAS operators to have the PASS program once every 3 years?
They do. Yep. And they also require we require what they require. If you're utilizing chemicals, you have to have the pesticide certification. Yes. And in speaking to many people who went through that program, they're continually communicating to the UAS world. If you're going through this chemical program, you have people working with the Aeronautics Mission too. So we have a good partnership with those different groups. We just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We're not trying to restrict operation. We want operations to occur in North Dakota, both manned and unmanned, but we want them to occur safely on the aeronautics side and also on the chemical side. We want people to obviously know what they're doing with the chemicals. That's not necessarily our expertise at the Aeronautics Mission, so we want them working with the NDSU and the Department of Ag, in that world. So,
Are those private and commercial? Do USs?
yes, private and commercial. So it's actually a good question. So if you're privately spraying, you still need a license. By state's entry code, it specifically states that all aerial application in North Dakota will have a license with the Aeronautics Commission. And so that's something that we actually discussed with the Attorney General's office when we were discussing adding a license for the UAS world a couple of years ago. Whether or not it was appropriate to have a license for private versus commercial. And it was determined, yes, all aerial application, even if it's private, does need a license with the Aeronautics Commission. But the path forward to get that license is relatively easy. We just want to see some experience, obviously, in knowing how to operate a UAS, and yet you do need to know what is needed in the chemical world too. So there is a path forward. It's relatively simple for those who want to move in that direction, and we're happy to work with any individuals that want to learn more about that as well. But something that we just have to continue to educate people on who want to step into this world. Yeah. Good question.
Carl said, my name is Jeff Wool. I'm with the FAA safety team on Fargo. And if you guys are at the Triag, which for some of you were, this is about the same thing. Going to touch on some human factors, pilot records, and a review of some fatal accidents that happened in North Dakota this year. So with that, pilot records. This is pilot records to keep at your base of operations. And keep in mind the training and endorsement required by paragraph I-1 of this section is not required if the person logged pilot in command time in a tail wheel airplane before April 15, 1991. There's been kind of some back and forth on that. Aircraft records more to include airworthiness certificate, and registration, your logs. Of course, you're not going to carry all that with you. Records of ADs and any repairs and alterations that you may have. And this is what you can carry in your aircraft. You just carry copies of your airworthiness certificate and your operating certificate. Make sure that you have them back at your domicile. Some more references for document requirements. Next, talk a little bit about complacency. Complacency refers to a state of satisfaction or self-satisfaction accompanied by unawareness of potential danger or deficiencies. In aerial application, complacency can be dangerous as it may lead individuals to overlook risk, neglect safety protocols, or become less vigilant in their duties, increasing the likelihood of accidents or error. It's important for pilots to remain vigilant and proactive in identifying and mitigating risk rather than becoming complacent. And we all become complacent, driving, flying's a little less forgiving. And you gotta really be on your game. Common human error preconditions, or conditions that can act as precursors to accidents or incidents, that's human factor, can influence people to make mistakes. And human factors includes considerations such as pilot workload, decision-making processes, situational awareness, fatigue management, and ergonomic design of cockpit controls. Understanding and addressing human factors is essential for enhancing safety and effectiveness in aerial application. Not only aircraft controls, but say you jump in from a Pawnee to a 502. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on there. So have you been driving and thinking about the solution to a problem and suddenly find yourself at your destination with no recollection of how you got there? Yeah, I have done that. Only one. Well, maybe more. But that's zoning out. You don't want to do that in spring. The brain can handle routine actions without conscious guidance. Repetitive tasks become automated to free up our attention for things that are new, unusual, or threatening. If it were not that way, we would be overwhelmed by the simplest of tasks. Seems like something has to be new, unusual, or threatening to heighten our alert. Oh, yeah, that seatbelt and shoulder harness is always checking. Sun rot. People who are repeatedly exposed to dangerous situations such as police officers, firefighters, pilots, and mechanics, become less concerned and cautious about them. We become complacent about our personal safety from repeated exposure to threatening situations. That's true. Analyze small mistakes, not just the serious ones. Discuss with people you work with the hazards of your job. Look for signs of complacency in other people. And this will help bump up your awareness to help you fight out of pilot. Dodging power lines. The reason I'm touching on this is because out of the 3 fatals we had this year, Part 137, 2 of them were power lines. Now out of 5 fatals, I believe, in the last 7 years, out of those 5, 3 were power lines. Ag pilots have no choice but to contend with low-level operations where wire strikes are a perennial risk. The best way to mitigate risk is to do your checks. Even if it's somewhere you've been before, you must get the best third-party information you can. You need to take the time to study the map, ask the right questions of the grower, and get the best advice you can. On-site inspection, the next preparation stage involves on-site inspection and verifying what others have said about the local wires. You can't just go with the information a third party gives. The gentleman said, you must check every part of it yourself. It is critical you conduct follow-up reconnaissance orbits prior to trimming up the field. Anytime you change swap directions, or if you return to a job after a pause. Since you scout for wires, at the beginning of the application, at some point they can easily be lost from your short-term memory, as other application tasks occupy your thoughts. It is critical that you have an active mental verbal system in place to prevent short-term memory loss of wires. And when I was reading this, I just thought about my short-term memory and how it goes in and out and in and out. I wouldn't be a good pilot anymore. Experience not a factor. The wire is no respecter of experience. 69% of the pilots who had a wire strike had more than 2,500 hours total time, and 22% of the pilots had more than 15,000 hours total time. Where limited experience seemed to play a role was time in the type of aircraft involved in the accident. So the wires we generally hit are the ones we know about. This gentleman said, every wire I've hit, I've known about, he says. I've known where they were, but I still hit them. I'm the same. If it weren't for the sharp eyes of my crew, I would have collected one myself. Such an environment demands our A game, which means if we are not well trained, don't have the right procedures, are distracted or unruly stressed and fatigued, we should be giving that low-level job a serious rethink. And boy, I mean, these wires, they don't mess around. This is a count of accidents by 137s or 54 of this NUSN is just not enough information in the accident report. So they're actually really number 2. And it shows we had 54 in 2023, and that's nationwide that I pulled up. North Dakota, yeah, 1, 2. Well, we didn't have any accidents in 22 and 20. But there you can see 4 fatal accidents over that amount of time, and 30 of those were wire strikes. Okay, these are the North Dakota accidents I'll go through. This was in Beltrami, Minnesota. It's in our district, so we covered it. On June 27, 2023, about 18:55 Central Daylight Time, a Schweitzer G164B was substantially damaged when it was involved in an accident near Beltrami, Minnesota. The pilot was fatally injured. The airplane was operated as Title 14 Code of FAR Part 137 flight. The accident occurred near the completion of the pilot's 2nd spray load of the field and 19th spray load of the day. The airplane impacted a field that was located about a quarter mile northwest of the field being sprayed. The impact heading was northwest, and the airplane came to a rest inverted on a southeast heading about 45 feet from the initial impact. There were no witnesses to the accident. Debris at the initial impact point included underbelly components of the airplane, including the spray pump. Ground scars from both wings were located on each side of the initial impact point. No pre-impact anomalies were found with the flight control system. Fuel was observed on the ground at the accident site, and fuel was drained from the air. And fuel that was drained had no indications of water or sediment. So the airplane was detained for examination. Now this is our physical reports, not NTSB. This next one, Thrush in Ardagh, North Dakota. On September 12, 2023, about 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time, the Thrush S2R was substantially damaged during an accident near Ardagh, North Dakota. The pilot was fatally injured. The airplane was operated as Part 137 aerial application. The purpose of the flight was to spray a sunflower field. The flight departed from a private strip near Oslo, Minnesota, and the last known contact with the pilot was about 13:45. An on-site examination revealed that the airplane's left wing impacted a guy wire that attached to a power line structure located on the west edge of the field being sprayed. Based on the wreckage distribution, the airplane was flying to the south when the left wing impacted the guy wire on the west side of the power line structure. The 3/8-inch outside diameter guy wire is normally attached to a crossarm near the top of the 73-foot tall pole. According to the power company, the guy wire was about 95 feet long and attached to the pole crossarm about 65 feet above ground level. The guy wire was anchored to the ground about 62 feet west of the pole. Examination of the guy wire, which had separated from the pole during impact, revealed damage about 82 feet from the ground anchor. After the guy wire impact, the outboard 7 feet of the left wing and left aileron separated and were located south of the guy wire strike in an adjacent soybean field. The separated portion of the left wing exhibited evidence of a wire strike through the wing leading edge structure and along the forward spar. The airplane continued south about 0.3 miles before it impacted a cornfield. On the east-southeast bearing, the airplane impacted the cornfield in a left wing down and nose down attitude. The main wreckage was located about 155 feet from the initial ground impact. An impact crater was located about 50 feet east-southeast of the initial impact point. The engine, propeller, and main landing gear separated during the impact. This one was New Rockford, and it was on September 19th. At about 12:32 Central Daylight Time, an air tractor AT-502 was substantially damaged when it was involved in an accident near New Rockford, North Dakota. The pilot was fatally injured. The airplane was operated as a Title 14 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 137. 4 witnesses reported the airplane flew underneath power lines while spraying a field of sunflowers. The witnesses observed the top of the vertical stabilizer sheared off by the power lines, and the airplane continued to fly straight ahead westbound. About a quarter-mile west of the power lines, the airplane made a left turning dive and subsequently impacted a cornfield. The airplane came to rest inverted on southerly heading, about 10 feet from the initial impact point. Both wing leading edges were crushed aft. All airplane components were located except for a majority of the wire deflector cable and a 10-inch section of the top of the vertical stabilizer, which were never recovered. Wire impact marks were observed about 18 inches below the top of the vertical stabilizer. The rudder separated from the vertical stabilizer and was found underneath the left wing. The inflatable restraints airbags were deployed. No pre-impact anomalies were observed. The flight control system, the 3 prop blades exhibited rotational signatures, so power on. And that's the end of our fatals, and it was a bad year, really. 0 would be good, but it was a high year this year. 3 fatals is too many. 3 too many. Do you guys have any questions? Just stay away from wires. And that 8-hour course that Kyle was talking about sounds very interesting. I think it'll be very, very good.
Any questions?
Now,
Okay, let's thank him for joining us. So our next speaker for all of you here, Matt Henry. He's the safety manager for the Northern Plains U.S. Test Site. As always, UAS world is new. The technology continues to improve rapidly, and so of particular interest, as always, our aerial applicator community. It's always great to get an update on the UAS world. So let's give a hand to Matt.
Okay, as Kyle said, I'm Matt Henry with the Northern Plains UAS Test Site. Here to give you guys an update on the state of the drone industry. So we'll go through a little bit of, for those who don't know, who we are, what we do, those types of things, some of the research we're currently doing, and kind of how that plays into the ag world. Some of that research directly relates to some of the things you guys are doing, and then just kind of a reality check on some stuff, and where we're moving forward within the state of North Dakota, so you guys have a little bit of awareness of what we're doing here locally. So we were set up in 2013. We're one of 7 designated UAS test sites across the country. We're very much integrated within the state of North Dakota. Our advisory board, which is on, helps us advise how we operate within the state and just kind of our forward thinking making across the state of North Dakota. So our actual mission is to collaborate with the FAA and industry in a way to further develop equipment, systems, rules, and integrate that safely within the national airspace. And here's the one thing I'd like to highlight, without negatively impacting the general aviation and commercial aviation community. Funny enough, most of the people that I work with are all manned pilots, come from a manned background, myself, and I don't want to negatively impact my weekend joyrides around the state of North Dakota, so we usually try to keep that in mind when we're trying to get the UAS industry moving forward. So where are we supposed to be with all of this? When we hear all these big numbers, this with the test site since 2015, and every 5 years we're supposed to be flying cars and doing the Jetsons thing, and it's still not quite here. Supposed to be 90% of the total pool market was precision ag and public safety, 1 billion, that's a big number across the country. Estimated today, supposed to be $13.6 billion. It's a lot of industry, but kind of where do we land? What is this really looking like today? Ag is only about 4 billion of that. That's a big number still, but most of them are going to mapping and surveying. It's a lot easier to do these activities when you can see the aircraft close by. You're not in the BB loss environment, which is a limitation of some of the operators today. But for ag, there are kind of, I think, 4 key areas where the drone industry really fits into. We already talked about surveying here, so surveying topographic soil conditions, the ground, so what does the field environment maybe looks like. There's always the tout, the drones are cheaper than manned aircraft. That can be true, but also can be very not true, depending on the scope of the operation and the size of the things you want to do. Drones could be potentially more efficient. I alluded to this, to some of these niche groups where you might have smaller areas that traditional manned aircraft can't get in. That's definitely a possibility. And they can definitely reduce the risk of accidents, as we just heard to the pilot. I mean, we're removing the pilot from the situation, putting them safely on the ground. But there are always safety conditions to make sure you're aware of as far as flying aircraft. We've also got to see a lot of large aircraft that we're currently using for the current ag spraying operations, but the current UAS market is limited to 55 pounds or less. It's a really small aircraft. Most of these things, generally speaking, are bigger than I am tall, and by the time you put a payload on there, that's starting to make the aircraft to be much smaller, just underneath that 55 pounds. Kyle already said this, still need to be Part 137, and especially within North Dakota, we have our own set of particular rules that apply to those, so pointing you towards him for getting all the extra information. This aircraft here off to the side is a Pica UAS. It's a larger UAS that would create to like an ultralight, small, sport style aircraft. And it has a payload of about 400 pounds. But now we're talking about something well outside this 55 pounds, and we're going to start talking about exemptions and waivers, which make that a lot harder to fly. It takes a lot more paperwork and pre-coordination before you're flying those things. But still, I think much smaller payload. An expert myself, I'm guessing you're carrying more than 400 pounds when you're flying around. So still probably a niche market at this point. So what's happening with UAS? What are we doing? So we're supposed to have been the Jetsons, we're supposed to be flying around, we should be doing all these crazy things. What are we actually still doing today? That kind of comes into what we do. We do a lot of the drone research around the country, and specifically in North Dakota. So I'm going to go through a couple of the key points here. This will kind of get us into the second part of our discussion here today. But talked about removing the pilot out of the situation. We still have all these requirements for see and avoid. I got to see all the other aircraft around the state that I'm flying with. My UAS has to stay safe so we're not running into things. So DAA is really an important aspect of that. This is from a program we did this summer out there, seeing how can a UAS actually get out of the way of a manned aircraft, right? You know, Cessna going 120 knots, my drone's going 20 miles an hour. That's a different, so the speed spread, so it's a lot harder for the drone to get out of the way. One of the techniques that they're floating around as far as in the research environment is maybe I go to a safe state. The state in this particular situation, we were using a shelter belt along the farmer field to emulate power lines. So the idea is I would get out of the way of the aircraft, and I would hide in the power lines because power lines are dangerous and we need to stay away with those. So evaluating that and seeing how much of a good idea that really is or is not, and reporting that back. So I take the pilot out of the situation, and I need to still talk to the drone, so communication is really a big part of that. Anybody here who's ever used a cell phone, especially in the early days, they drop calls, right? So can't have my aircraft over power line, I have an aircraft coming up, I need to get it out of the way, and have a dropped call. That would be terrible. So we've done numerous projects on reliability of drone communications. Some of that's been in sheltered environments, so power lines, EMF fields, those things all impact communications, as well as you just start packing up drones in a small spot. We have things talking over each other. How does that work? Pretty interesting stuff. And whenever you have good actors, you have bad actors. So how does that look in a drone environment? That's research, and how do I identify who's good, who's bad? Are you supposed to be there? You're not supposed to be there. Who are you? What are you doing? Those types of things. Did a big project summer with that. That was pretty interesting technology to evaluate. Then how do we manage all these things? Currently, you guys, whether you're talking to them, but there's ATC, there's communication environment that you can participate in or not participate in, depending on where you're flying. Drones don't have that. You need to figure out how that works. So universal traffic management is the way to manage that. It's like the ATC in the sky, book your flights, let everybody else know what you're doing, who you are, where you're going, and allows everybody to coordinate. So been working with NASA over the last several years to get that implemented and working on that. That's a further initiative that we're working on even to today. This one's real interesting. So we just got granted a proposal to work with NDAC, Grand Farm, Talos, ISIT's local operator, and us to evaluate pesticide-resistant weeds within the state of North Dakota. So how did you fly over the farm field and identify which weeds are those and are not those? So that's some work we're going to be working on here in the future that is very interesting. So all that being said, that's a lot of equipment, right? I have to figure out where I'm flying, how I'm flying there. I need the communications equipment. I need how to coordinate with other aircraft. That's a lot to put on a drone operator. So in this example, I have the Department of Transportation. They want to survey a road, right? They need all these things. They have to figure out some way to have a C2 communication with their aircraft. If they're going to fly around the range, they're going to have some way to monitor the airspace so that they know who else is flying there. They need to be able to pre-plan their mission, all these things. And then you stack that up against the railroad who's right next to them that wants to do the same thing, and the utility that's right there that wants to do the same thing. And now I got the farmer who also wants to do the same. That's a lot of people that are having to figure out a way to fly further, do all these special types of technology and implement that into their system. There's a lot easier way of doing that, which North Dakota is trying to figure out. Vantas is our cell phone backbone network of how we can see UAS integrating into the state. So really what this is imagine like a road network, right? We're paving the way to get UAS flying into the state, long range where I can't see them. So we're putting in infrastructure for radars and surveillance. That way I can see who's flying where, and I can tell if we're separated well enough. Have a network throughout the state, and this allows us to transfer all that information through users and for us to monitor it. We have a NDAC, Mission Network Operations Center, and this is like the hub. Imagine like big screens all over the wall, and all the guys sitting behind it monitoring all the systems, make sure everything's operating the way it's supposed to be, everybody's where they're supposed to be, those kinds of things, and then the systems themselves operating within that environment. We started this back in 2019, so we've made a pretty big progress over the last several years. thankfully North Dakota's invested a lot of money into this, and we're very appreciative of that. And they're pushing us forward as we start to develop more and more technologies. We started out on the western side of the state, Williston and Rockford City area, with kind of our test bed of things. That's where most of our activities have been. That has been going well. We've progressed through a number of waivers and developed technology that we brought on board to the point where we're interested in expanding that. So hopefully within the next year or so, we're out in Grand Forks and the Fargo area as well, installing radars and the surveillance equipment. Do all this. Here's some pictures, just that it's quite a process. It's not just like a small operation where you roll up the radar. I mean, this is permanent infrastructure that we're putting in throughout the state. So really, this is a jump start on, we saw that big Pica aircraft before. So UAM is urban air mobility. Advanced air mobility is AAM, so larger aircraft for things like air taxis and things like that. This is kind of the precursor to that. So while it's not here, and we're still flying these small 55-pound or less drones, the market's pushing and expanding, at least in the research environment. And how do we go bigger and further? So that's kind of where that's pushing forward. It's a lot. Kind of trying to get through that. This is a huge topic, so anybody have any questions, happy to answer them. Go ahead.
So did remote ID ever get implemented?
It did. That's a requirement that you now need to meet.
And so isn't that, we supposedly can get an app on our phone to get the registration number of a drone that's flying over us?
I think in theory, that's how that's supposed to work out. You should be able to, at least as far as I know, the first responders and they should be able to figure out who you are and what you are as far as where you are and not supposed to be in those things.
And then, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the egg industry really has a lot of heartburn with the shielded area concept, because we operate in the shielded area.
Yeah.
So, but I was also wondering if, so drones cannot use ADS-B out, right?
Correct.
But
Well, generally speaking, yes.
at one time, there was a company that claimed they could make a limited range ADS-B out, and they were marketing to try to use on drones. Do you know if anything ever became of that?
I kind of doubt it. The issue with ADS-B out on drones is the ADS-B network as a whole was never designed. They got the number up there of how many commercial drones are flying around. You start to, every little tiny drone that you put that on, that equates to too much of a service volume.
Well, their point was that it would have a limited range of like a mile or something.
Yeah, I think the intent of the remote ID is to put a module on the aircraft which will have a broadcast volume that hopefully will equate to that. We'll see how that goes. It's technology, right? We have to try something and see if it works, and we'll grow from there.
Was that a Pario?
It could have been, I don't remember.
I think that EU Avionics is doing some of that stuff too.
Pario pretty much.
Oh,
I believe that remote ID deadline was extended, correct?
Yeah.
It's in March.
Yeah, I mean,
It's in play, but
it's in play, but yeah, it keeps getting. It's a big undertaking to get everybody to.
I believe it was March 16th, I thought.
I think we ran into the same thing when the ASB came out. We wanted to push that on everybody. There's a process to try to get everybody on board with that. I imagine that would follow the same process.
main concern was the supply of the technology getting, that capability out there, so.
Yeah, a lot of these drones were manufactured and sold not having that as part of the requirements. And now I got to figure out as a drone manufacturer, how do I put a new technology on a drone that changes my drone? I talked about waivers. If I have waivers or anything, the customer needs to update their waivers, and the only thing it's a process, unfortunately. We'll make it through it.
Other questions?
But I'll be here all week. If you see me, grab me. Happy to talk drones, even if it's just you want to fly over your own property. Happy to help you out. Thank you.
Yeah, looks like that. great update. I have the privilege of working with Northern Plains U.S. Test Site, and like he said, our goal has and will continue to be safe integration of this newer technology without impacting, manned aircraft and the aerial applicators that are here. I know there's continual concerns, with this technology, so feel free to communicate those concerns directly with us at the NDAC Commission, North Dakota Aerial Applicator Association, North Dakota Aviation Association. There's a lot of groups that are working together to try to make this happen. And so, but with that, let's hear an update from Brian. All right, thanks for joining us, Brian.
Thank you. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Brian Rao. I'm applicator at Medina, North Dakota. Jeff touched on wires quite a bit, and they were a problem not just in North Dakota, but across the country. And we'll have a little bit of overlap between mine and Jeff's presentation, but not much. So I'm going to go mostly, well, includes the North Dakota ones, but goes to the national accidents too. And my goal here is to point you all towards other training. And we'll talk about that after we do the accident review here. So this were the 2023, and these are NTSB reported accidents. And a lot of these are still preliminary. Some are so incomplete that we couldn't even put them in a category. So 23 CFIT accidents and 16 were wires. This is across the country, reported to NTSB. 11 power loss, 7 were still in the incomplete category. Loss of control 3, takeoff 3, pre-flight 2, weather 2, fuel exhaustion 1, fuel contamination 1, an in-flight fire 1, and had 1 stall. And we didn't have a mid-air, but we did have a collision with 2 aircraft on the ground. Now, more importantly, the fatal accidents. And I think I'm missing one that I couldn't find, I've heard. And these are all preliminary yet. So the wires and terrain, CFIT, all that CFIT accidents. However, as we go through these, I think you're going to see that at least 1 or 2 of the CFIT terrain accidents are going to be stalls. I'll read it and read what the NTSB said and let you guys decide. Jeff reported on this accident already, and all I did in reading the NTSB report was try to take out of the narrative what I thought was appropriate to decide and what happened, and there wasn't a lot of detail on a lot of these to actually decide on this one how an airplane just hit the ground. This was a Huey. ADSB data showed the helicopter working field north to south. Now these are all the fatal accidents. Each pass appeared consistent with turns to the east. At 13:10, the helicopter made a turn to the west and then impacted terrain. And so we don't know if was that a settling with power type thing. We don't know at this point. In 8:02 on August 8th, these aren't in any particular order. A witness to the accident stated that she was driving south on the state highway and saw the airplane flip sideways and stated that she wasn't sure if it was a crop duster or performing aerobatics. She could not see the ground impact because of her position, but saw smoke and then the airplane burning at the accident site. Her daughter, who was also in the vehicle, stated that she saw the airplane rapidly spinning with it like a corkscrew towards the ground. So I don't know, what does that sound like to you all? Stall spin probably? But this one, preliminary, is just called CFIT terrain. And again, this is what the NTSB reported, and I talked to a few different people, and Jeff, I don't know, I thought this was a 710 thrush. This was another one that happened in North Dakota, and Jeff covered that pretty well, so I don't think I'll go over that anymore. And this also was the 502 that Jeff reported up by New Rockford. So we'll just skip by that one also. Then, on July 25th, we had a 402. The airplane impacted the lower conductor on a set of power lines along the perimeter of a cornfield. The airplane ultimately impacted the cornfield and came to rest upright about 337 feet from the power line. The airframe sustained damage to the fuselage, both wings, vertical stabilizer, and rudder. I didn't bother to put where these were. I didn't think it was relative. This is a Bell, a 206, and this one, the pilot lived for a while afterwards. So the pilot reported to his wife that while conducting an aerial application flight, he became distracted in the cockpit and failed to see and avoid wires that were spanning the field. The helicopter subsequently impacted the train, wires, and then train, which resulted in substantial damage to the fuselage. The pilot was hospitalized and succumbed to his injuries 18 days after the accident. I couldn't find where it said if there was a post-impact fire. That's when somebody survives for a while and then passes away, that's most often the case. So think about no mixed flight suits. But I don't know that's what happened here. Then we had another Bell 206. Pilot was spraying cornfield on an easterly heading when the helicopter struck the middle two of four 75 to 100 foot tall tension power transmission lines that were oriented perpendicular to the direction he was spraying. The helicopter impacted the cornfield and came to rest on its right side. The tail boom was separated and was found forward of the main wreckage. Then another Bell 27, a lot of helicopter problems. The loading truck driver was located about 2 miles away and actually saw the ambulance coming down the road and followed it. When he got to the accident site, he noticed power lines down in the street and some entangled with the helicopter skid. And looking at the pictures that were there, it looks like the skid had separated from the helicopter too. The accident site was located in the cornfield about 20 yards from the road. The helicopter came to rest on its left side, and a post-accident fire consumed the engine and fuel tanks. The tail rotor was found about 20 yards away from the main wreckage. The spray boom and one skid were found about 30 yards away in a tree. This one, I believe, was in California on Ullman's Thrush S2R turbine, I believe. According to the operator, the pilot was scheduled to spray fungicide over several almond orchards. A witness located about a half mile northwest of the accident site reported that he observed the airplane making several passes in a racetrack pattern. The airplane left the area and then returned and made additional passes. This person reporting heard a loud noise about 2 minutes after the last pass. The airplane came to rest inverted in an almond orchard about 500 feet northeast of a power line and adjacent to a severed power line. A section of conductor was wrapped around the propeller hub. Then we had an AGCAT. Review of photos revealed that ground scars consistent with the initial impact with terrain were about 93 feet from the main wreckage. The wreckage came to rest inverted in the field. Again, a post-impact fire. The engine was separated. And this is another one that I couldn't find anything. There was no mention of wires. So this was just CFIT terrain, and aircraft generally don't just hit the ground. So I don't know if it was a stall or what. Again, my big point here that I was hoping to do is, provide some training on how do we improve, how do we improve. There are some safety courses available, but we have to, if we go to our wires course and we take the course and we listen to it and we say, yeah, those are good ideas, but if we don't put the information into practice, it hasn't really done us any good. So we have to commit to putting good information into practice. And Kyle mentioned this. There is a wire course in about a week from now. It's put on by a national company, not the NAAA. And you can still go there, as I understand. You can take a look at that if you want to register now, but it's free to anybody, and it's well worth it. There's several guys here that I know have taken it, and I think they would all say it's well worth it. It's being funded by the North Dakota Aerial Applicators, the Minnesota, and the South Dakota. And the Aeronautics Commission also put some money into it. Travis, does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, strongly recommend doing that. There are real things you can do. Jeff talked about complacency and memory, short-term memory loss and stuff. There are really some things you can do to improve all that. And I'm not going to try to get into it now. I'm going to hope that you guys will go to this course. If you don't get to this course, the National Agricultural Aviation Association also has a abbreviated course, an online wires course that's free to NAAA members. Just another good reason to be an NAAA member. They're starting to put a lot of their things online, and there's this course and one other course that's online now, and I think it's, if for no other reason, that training, there's going to be more of it online, behooves everybody to be a member of the NAAA, in my opinion.
Those of us that have seen it is $150 for
Yeah.
time.
If you take it at the National, it's $150, and so this is free. So take a, you know, if you're like me, you think, well, how can I spend a day, you know, learning about wires? But you can, can't you guys?
Seen it twice.
Yeah,
This will be my second time. It's unbelievable what you'll learn in there.
yeah. So strongly recommend that. And I guess a lot of people have signed up for it, which is good. If you miss all those and don't want to do that online, there is a course at next November's NAAA convention. They've moved to November now. They used to be in December. And this date, November 16th, is the Saturday before the convention, as I understand it. And it's where this year?
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth, Texas. Oh, I got it right there. The other thing, stalls. As I mentioned, I think a couple of these are going to end up being stalls, these C-fit trains. And Air Tractor produced a new Turn Smart video. There was an older one about, what, 10 years ago? This is a new one, and it's really done well. It's got, you know, the information isn't all that different, but it's got great graphics and animations. And again, you think, oh, you've been flying for 40 years, so what do I need to do this? But reviewing this really makes you think and makes you, well, that's why we don't do that in a left turn and things like that. Just very good. And really, actually, this would be good for any student, any you know, aviation student, really. And it's free. It's online, YouTube, and I think there's some other sites where you can see it too. In that Turn Smart video, this gentleman, Colonel Mike Mullane, he's a NASA astronaut, and he talks in there about normalization of deviance and the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. And he does a good job of relating it to what we all do. But a couple of takeaways that I took from it, a couple of quotes that he said that really stuck with me. He said, follow your procedure to the letter every single time. They are figuratively written in blood. You know, we know we can't do those hammerhead stalls all day long, every day, and expect to survive it. It's been proven over and over again. We've had air tractor test pilots who have succumbed to doing those real fast turns. The other thing that got me thinking was that risk has no memory. A risk taken does not diminish further risk. This, you know, I'll admit, as a young pilot, I went through this, flying a Pawnee home sometimes. I'd go through some crappy thunderstorms and stuff and say, oh, I can do this. But you know what? The risk of the next one was just the same as the risk for the last one that I just did. And I stopped doing that. But a couple of things that really, you know, you've been turning hard for your whole career. Doesn't mean the next time you go out, the engine won't cough a little bit, or you hit some wake turbulence, and that stall that's right on the edge, you know, one wing goes down, and then you're done. So the PASS program this year, it is actually possible to get in on a makeup, AMOC session, and that's March 12th. And you can go to that website to get signed up for it if you haven't taken it. And one of the interesting things, that also covers wires and it covers stalls. The last thing I wanted to leave with, and I only remember this because I just did it on an aircraft that I recently purchased. Hidden master switches. They're just so easy to put on. And from sheer, you know, most of our, I don't think even the new air tractors have any type of key in them, do they? Does anybody know?
Yep.
They do?
Yeah, a little key.
Okay. But most of them that we have don't have, they just got an on and off switch. And putting in a hidden master switch is really easy, you know. The FAA says we don't have to do a field approval on them, although you should actually have a mechanic do it and a logbook sign off. But really all you do is on the master, you just put 2 masters in series and they both have to be on for the airplane to start. And you put one where only you and the other pilots know where it is. Really easy to do. So I just saw that as a security issue. I know we haven't gone over security much here, but it's very, you know, a lot of us travel some of us travel a lot. And I use it even when I take the airplane to Jamestown, the airplane to Jamestown when I have to leave it on the ramp for the mechanic to get it. So any questions or comments? That's all I have today. Thank you.
So, like Brian said, there's plenty of opportunities to enhance your opportunities to learn more about how we can safely operate. So I really encourage all of you and anyone that you know, you can help spread the word on a lot of the information that Brian just shared in regards to what those opportunities are. And so obviously let's continue to work together to enhance and promote the safety of our operations as we move forward. To go to our last presentation of this conference, we're going to go into a pesticide briefing. Dylan Zupke, he's a pesticide outreach specialist with the Department of Agriculture, was not able to join us in person, but he did give us about a 12-minute recording here, and so I'm going to play this for all of you, and then we'll wrap everything up.
My name is Dylan Zupke. I am the pesticide outreach specialist with the North Dakota Department of Agriculture. I'm going to do a quick briefing on some pesticide topics, run you through a few things today. I'm relatively new to the position, but feel free to call me anytime, ask me questions, and if I don't have the answer, I'll find someone who does and get back to you. So our first topic here, just to touch base on, bees. North Dakota ranks first in honey production across the U.S. In 2022, North Dakota bees produced 31.2 million pounds of honey, valued at over $82 million. So they are important to North Dakota's economy. They're important for a variety of reasons. And so we do our best to be good stewards on that front. However, everyone has a job to do, and we understand that. And so doing your best to notify beekeepers is important. If you're unable and you've done what you can, feel free to give us a call and we can certainly try as well. But at the end of the day, you have a job to do, and things happen, and but they have a job to do as well. So it takes more than one party working together to have everyone benefit. From the North Dakota Pollinator Plan, the label is the law. There's some insecticide tips, so just read the label. The label is the law. It's on there for a reason. People that are smarter than I developed it. Try to avoid when bees are actively foraging for application. Midday, they're most active. So early morning, early evening pesticide application when possible. Integrated pest management practices are important. You may not have a lot of control over that, obviously, as you may not be directly involved in the planting operations and management of a farm, but it's certainly something to familiarize yourself with and talk to others about. And avoiding drift, obviously, consider applying products with a lower risk to bees, and then identifying and notifying beekeepers in the area prior to applications. There is an interactive map. There'll be a QR code coming up next. There's a website for the interactive map. It is a way to notify beekeepers quickly that you'll be applying potentially in their area. There's obviously the traditional method of locating, visually identifying the hives, getting the information, making the phone calls or the text messages, or and contacting them that way. There is also the map, and if they've created the account and have their information in there, you can click on the sensitive area map, draw where you're going to be applying, what you're going to be applying, and then submit it, and it'll send a notification to any hives in that within a 3-mile radius, notifying them that what's coming and what's going on. So it's a nice way. But you can create an account, register your treatment regions, beekeepers create an account, and do all kinds of things. It's a pretty neat tool. You can use this without creating an account, but yeah, there's a QR code for that. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, but familiarize yourself with the sensitive area map. It's a work in progress, and if everybody is participating in it, it can be a really useful tool. Threatened and endangered species is another thing that we're seeing coming down the line from the EPA. It's not new, but it is here, and I think we're going to hear more about it. So there's a handful of endangered species, threatened and endangered species in North Dakota. There's a requirement under FIFRA that governs the use of pesticides in the United States. Studies are done, and all registration decisions must incorporate threatened and endangered species and the effects and ways to potentially mitigate harmful issues. Currently 50 pesticide ingredients, over 1,000 products, court enforceable deadlines with violations to the ESA. Estimated that this will take the EPA past 2040 in completing this work. The biggest thing is, again, the label is the law. Read the label. If the label mentions that there's endangered species and there's a website that you must visit, then you must visit. Visit the website. There's an additional bulletin. It will go over any additional limitations that need to be considered when applying said product. So follow the website. Best practice is to note the date and the time that you check the bulletins for your records. A timestamp and documentation is important. It's definitely a protective measure, but timestamp and dating when you visited for your application is important. I would encourage you to do that. Talk briefly about some common infractions that we see. One part of my role is to also conduct mock inspections and basically be a resource, a safe space. I am not an inspector. I am not, I don't work in a regulatory capacity. I can do mock inspections, and I do not share information with inspectors. There's a partition there between us and them. I know what they do. I shadow them on inspections, and then I can conduct inspections on my own. The only thing I do is I tip them off that I did an inspection, and so they won't show up the next day and do an inspection. I request that they give a few months time, before they show up and do the inspection. So that's the only information I do share with the inspectors if I conduct a mock inspection in their area. So some common infractions we see. A big one obviously is paraquat. Know that there is an additional training. So you may have your, what I understand is when you take the test, they do not keep a record or a database of the completion. So when you complete the training and it gives you your certificate, my recommendation is to download it, print it off, take a picture on your phone or all three so that you have it. It sounds like it's difficult to retrieve, if not impossible to retrieve after the fact. So it's 45 minutes in length. It might take you might go quicker. It's work at your own pace. It's due every 3 years. Here is a QR code to that additional training. When my predecessor took it, it was a $25 fee. Record keeping is another common infraction we see. Commercial and public applicators must keep all application records 24 hours. That record must be made. If you're anything like me, sometimes I forget what I had for breakfast and it's only 10:30 a.m. So do that within that 24-hour window. It's just good practice, and it's a protective measure for yourself. Saving your record for 3 years is important. It's the law to refuse or falsify your records. So saving for 3 years. Again, it's just kind of a CYA there, and that timestamp and that documentation can really, stop a lot of confrontation and can really back up that you were in the right. Pesticide storage is another common infraction we see. You're probably all familiar with, not storing it next to food, feed, seed. Sometimes they'll see pesticides or chemicals stored above seed, and if there's a leak and it drips down, obviously now we're affecting everything below that pesticide. So storing pesticides in their original containers is important. If you do ever and have a leaky product, obviously I can't be there immediately, but you let us know. We do have thick plastic bags that you can place it into and bring it to Project Safe Send. We'll talk about that briefly in just a moment. Commercial and public storage must have sign at entrances. That's for your safety and the public safety and first responder safety. And floor drains, if you do have a floor drain in a storage area, it must be sealed or self-contained. A common trick, for the inspectors that will go through, they'll sometimes drag their foot as they walk across it just to see how sturdy what it's sealed is with as. But that's another common infraction we see. And then unauthorized persons, children, animals, storing pesticides appropriately so they can't get to them. And then safety equipment, being immediately available. Have your PPE, have multiple PPE if you can have it in spots, designated spots, and then the spill kit is important too. We see that as a common infraction. Not having a spill kit, that's 40 pounds of floor dry kitty litter or the like, and 2 5-gallon pails and a shovel. So if you are applying pesticides in tribal lands, you need to just Google a request for applicator certification in Indian country. You'll find the form. That form needs to be mailed to US EPA Region 8. So make sure you do that if you're applying on tribal lands. And if you have any questions about compliance, just please give me a call. My contact information will be at the end. Again, we're just trying to educate and do better and just help out any way we can. Project Safe Send is coming up here in July. We're working on setting the dates. Keep an eye out on the website, press release. There'll be posters that go out to extension offices too. Hopefully by the end of March, we'll have it all finalized, so keep an eye out. It's where you can bring unusable pesticides. We accept the following, and we cannot accept the following. Please let me know if you have any questions about that, and then call as soon as you can if you're bringing more than 1,000 pounds. Those 2.5 gallon jugs, I think, are somewhere between 10 and 12 pounds. And so, you can help do the math there, but you can't bring more than 5,000. If you're bringing fumigants or granular products, please call in advance as well and let us know that. They take different packaging. They also go to a different facility. So it's important that we know that ahead of time. And yeah, you just pull up and the crew will unload you and they'll take care of packaging it and the transport of it and the safe disposal. It's incinerated out of state, high degree, high temperature. The facility has a filtration and scrubber system. And if you have any questions, just like I said, please feel free to reach out. That's my phone number, my work cell phone, and my email address. And I'm happy to help, and we'll strive to be a good resource for you. So thank you for your time.
Very good. And so I guess after that, we're going to conclude this session, the Aerial Applicator Safety Meeting for 2024. I appreciate all of you that came in person. I thank all of you who tuned online to this year's session. At the end of the day, we're all here to help, and so like you hear today from whether it's the FAA, the Northern Plains U.S. Test Site, from Agriculture, the Aeronautics Commission. Again, we want you to be successful, we want you to be profitable in your business ventures, but we also want you to be safe. And so I hope I see everybody back here next year at this session, and we can announce that we had 0 fatalities for the upcoming season. I wish you all the best, and again, thank you for being here. Have a great rest of your conference.